Forget gurus. Forget anyone claiming to be an online business expert without going through the challenges of entrepreneurship themselves. The Real Money, Real Business podcast is here to prove the best insights in online business comes from your fellow online business builders. We dig into stories of entrepreneurs selling their business on the Empire Flippers marketplace so that you can learn how they made their business profitable, how they overcame obstacles, and what lessons they learned in their online journey. If you want to take your business and your knowledge to the next level, you've come to the right podcast. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, Brandon here with another great business to discuss on this episode of the Real Money, Real Business podcast. Today's guest is Josh, and he's selling his Amazon Associates and affiliate business on the Empire Flippers marketplace. So welcome to the show, Josh, and how are you doing today?
Thanks, Brandon. Thanks for having me. I'm doing great, and I'm happy to discuss the details of my business today.
Yeah, it's really great having you on the call. I'm glad you were able to come on today and, talk a little bit about the business you've created. But before we go into the interview itself, let's just go into a quick summary of the business. So it's an Amazon Associates and affiliate business in the survival and security niche, and it was created in January 2017. The average monthly revenue for the business is $38,323 and makes an average of $37,125 per month in net profit. For everyone listening, you can visit empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing 47242 to learn more about the business, or you can unlock this listing and start your due diligence if you're interested in purchasing this asset. So now that I've given a general overview of the business, included in the sale are the domain and all site content and files, an email list with over 1,200 subscribers, the social media accounts for Facebook and Twitter, push notification subscribers, which are over 18,808 on one signal, SOPs for the planned content, affiliate relationships, and the writer relationship. So, Josh, can you tell me a little bit about your background in building and running online businesses?
Yeah, so I got started fairly young. I was building websites when I was in high school, playing around with trying to make money online, learning, failing a lot, and then probably around end of high school, beginning of college for me. So I'm 24 now. So this was probably about 6 years ago. And I really kind of figured out what was working and what doesn't work and began to really dive deep into building up niche websites, online businesses in areas that I felt like we could compete in. And that kind of eventually scaled up to me selling my first website actually with Empire Flippers. I think it was like a fairly small site that I sold, but that kind of sparked my interest in knowing that you can build up these sites and eventually sell them for a pretty big payday. And that kind of got me hooked on things. Since then, I've kind of just have continued to double down, work on more websites, buy more websites, and like scale the content specifically. And that's where I met my business partner and half owner of this business. When he came in with a lot of SOPs and like SOP mindset that helped us scale to where we're at today, specifically with this website and creating a ton of content. And so that's kind of where we've gone over the past few years. We have a portfolio of websites that we manage and operate with my other business partner who owns this. So that's kind of where we're at now. And this was one of the very first few sites that me and him worked on together and has been our biggest success to date. So that's overall the general history of kind of how I got started, as well as kind of where this website came about and the history of it.
Okay. No, it's really awesome to hear, especially, at a younger age, being able to build this up, like you said, since you're in high school, it's really cool. Now, so how does this business then primarily make money, Josh? Is it mostly coming from the affiliate side of the monetizations, or is a lot of it coming from Amazon Associates? So
it is primarily other affiliates. So I think around maybe 25% of it comes from Amazon, roughly, maybe 25%. And the rest of it actually comes from alternative affiliates outside of Amazon. And I think we have about 6 or 7 different affiliates altogether that actually generate revenue on a monthly basis.
Okay. That's really great. And then, so why choose this specific niche? Was there something in the past that you guys had noticed that there was an opportunity to capitalize within this market?
Yeah. So like I mentioned earlier, one of our biggest strengths as a business is that we've got the content creation down to a T. We've been able to scale up and create a lot of content. Hence why there's, I think, 700 or 800, maybe even more now, actual articles on this site. So when we initially were getting into it, we wanted to find a niche where we could put that skill set to use and able to actually create a lot of content on one website. And this fit that description very well, and it continues to do that. So that's kind of what initially sparked our interest. And over time, it's kind of been in a way like a snowball because we saw initial success, which allowed us to continue to reinvest in it. And that continued over and over again for the past few years. We've been working on it.
Okay. No, that's really awesome. And then, so if the business is doing so well right now, Josh, why is it that you and your business partner have decided to sell the asset at this time?
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, also this is our biggest site that we have in our portfolio. And as a general business decision, we felt like it's kind of best to sell our biggest one and then find other avenues to invest in just because it's grown so large for us and a large proportion of our actual portfolio that as almost like a risk aspect of things for our entire business, it made the most sense to sell it now. And I'm fairly confident in it still not being at its peak potential by any means. There's still a lot more content. There's a lot new products and product types that are continuously being developed and released in this niche that kind of allow for continuous evergreen content to be created, even that may not be possible today, but in 3 months, there's going to be a whole bunch of new content to create. So in that aspect of it, there's still a ton of potential, but we are kind of just hedging our bet a little bit as our entire business and trying to sell our biggest asset right now.
No, that makes sense. And then, so now, is there anything that you've learned while you were growing this asset or this business that you plan on applying to your future projects or sites down the road?
I think it more so instead of learning something new, it kind of solidified our theory of trying to find niches that align with our strengths of being able to create a lot of content and eventually scale that up via content creation. Mm-hmm. So I think this kind of just proved the concept of that being able to work. So our next thing would be going out and trying to find other large niches or large areas that we can kind of replicate the same business model, but in a different arena.
Okay, makes sense. And then on the flip side of that, Josh, was there anything that you might have tried with this business and it just didn't give you guys the ROI that you were expecting?
Yeah, good question. So the first thing that comes to my mind is like a weekly newsletter that we started to do. And I still think that this is actually a huge opportunity if someone's to come in and actually implement that continuously week over week. So what we tried was like a weekly newsletter where we featured deals of the week. And we did that for a very short period of time. We probably did 4 different ones over a span of a few months. And we had relative success, but compared to the rest of the business, it was like extremely small. So we kind of were like, let's just double down on what we know is working. But I think it could be a huge opportunity, especially as email list grows, the one push notification subscribers grow, and you kind of build up a user base of people expecting this weekly newsletter. I think that could become a major part of this business, but it's just one area that unfortunately we didn't have a lot of time to continue pursuing and grooming its way up to be a big part of the business.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then, so now where does a majority of your traffic come from then? Is majority of it coming from organic search, or do you also run a few PPC ads to the website as well?
Yeah, majority is organic traffic. That was our main focus on traffic generation. We do get some direct traffic, referral traffic, some from social media, but it's very small in the grand scheme of things.
Okay, that makes sense. And are you doing anything else in terms of marketing as of today? I know you said you attempted to do a weekly newsletter, but is there any other forms of marketing that you have in place at this time?
No, pretty much at this point, our main focus is just continue to create content that eventually ranks for keywords and drives organic traffic.
Okay. No, that makes sense as well. And then hypothetically speaking, if you and your business partner were to continue and grow this, what are some of the ways that you would try and grow it personally?
Yeah, I would continue doing the same thing that we've been doing. And like I mentioned earlier, where there's always new content and new topics to create, I would continue doing that. That's been a recipe for success for this site for the past few years, and I would continuing to work very well. So that would be my main suggestion. The second thing would be to, since we already have such a large library of content, one of the biggest areas I think someone else that has a skill set of link building could come in and capitalize on is because we don't do link building at all. It's not our core expertise. We're not very good at it. So we kind of said, all right, if we're not good at it, let's focus on something we are good at, which is content creation. So if someone was to come in and had systems built for them to build links repeatedly month after month, I think this site could see a huge boost in traffic from the content that's already on the site, but just by building links to it. So that is something we would do in the future just because, like I said, it doesn't match our core strength. But for someone to come in that has that strength already, I think that provides a huge opportunity for them.
Yeah, no, definitely, building up the backlink profile and something that you haven't touched on yet is also a great opportunity for someone that is already familiar with that particular skill set. And then, on the topic of, what you've been doing currently for the business, can you describe some of the work that you're, currently doing on a weekly basis for the site now?
Yeah, so it's going to be a recurring theme of content creation, but that's kind of the engine that has grown the site where it is today.
Mhm.
So that's going to be where the bulk of the time is spent, whether that's all the way at the beginning of actually researching the topics to create, all the way to having them written by our writer, to having them edited, uploaded to the site, formatted, added affiliate links, all that type of stuff gets done, but it all falls under the bucket of content creation.
Okay. And then, so will the writer that you guys currently have with you guys be continuing on with the business, or is that something that a potential buyer will need to replace as far as the, the current operations of the business on the back end?
So yeah, the writer will come with the business. We will also give the contact information for a few of the writers that we've used in the past. We don't currently continue to use them, not because they were poor writers or anything by that nature. It was just more, we found one writer that fit our quantity goal that we needed, and we didn't need multiple writers. But if someone wanted to create more content or use other writers, we also have the contact information for them. So those will come with the business in terms of like the editor, the VA that works on uploading it and formatting it. Those are actually built into our systems in our business. So those are going to remain with us, but the writer will come with the business.
Okay, that makes sense. And then aside from, managing maybe an outsourced VA and then, managing the work for this writer that's coming along with the business, do you feel there's any other particular skill set that a potential buyer should already, have in their knowledge base prior to acquiring this asset?
I think this asset is built on a very solid foundation because it has such a large amount of content that is so diversified in terms of the percentage of traffic that each page gets. So what that means is that I think even if you don't create new content for this and you kind of just let it sit, I think that it will continue to be very stable and continue to grow realistically for the foreseeable future. But if someone comes in, like I said, with a link building skill set, that could help grow it for future growth in terms of content. You would have to have some sort of understanding, at least basic understanding of keyword research and understanding of how that translates into topics actually being created, and just general management in a way, just oversee if you have VAs or oversee the writer and things of that nature. But all pretty generic skill sets, I would say, for the average online business owner, especially content businesses. So I think it would appeal to a wide variety of people in terms of the skill sets actually needed to continue running this business.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you on, just seeing the general layout of the business you guys have created here as well. Now, what do you feel are maybe some of the potential risks that a buyer should be aware of with this business?
Yeah, the biggest one, just like with any content business that relies on organic traffic, is just Google updates. That's by far the biggest risk to this business. We've had it, like I said, for 3 years now. And so we've been through a ton of updates, haven't been really impacted by any of them. So that's not saying that it won't be impacted in the future, but it has at least a good track record of being able to pass whatever guidelines or quality stuff that Google looks at for this site. So that's the biggest risk, but we have like weathered the storm fairly well. And like I mentioned earlier about such a large percentage, like our content has such good diversification among where the traffic goes to on the top pages that I don't think the top page gets more than 1 to 1.5% of the traffic. So it's very diversified among the pages. So if some of the pages or some of the topics that are driving traffic now were impacted by future Google updates, that probably would not have a massive impact on the overall traffic just because it is so diversified among where the traffic is going.
Yeah, no, that's really important, especially when it comes to the updates. Having diversified page views and page traffic going to multiple pages on the site is very important. And it's good that you guys have implemented that tactic.
Yeah.
Now, Josh, are you and your business partner open to committing to a non-compete, meaning, any future projects or businesses down the road that you guys are managing, you'll stay out of this specific niche?
Yes, we're definitely open to it. We do have a site that isn't in the direct niche, but as the buyer of this site would see, is that it's kind of a broad spectrum of things where there's a lot of niches that kind of have a slight overlap in it. So that could be a discussion that we have with people that are interested in terms of what that non-compete would look like and kind of where we would stay within our boundaries or whatnot. So yes, we would definitely be interested in that, assuming we come to some sort of agreement that all parties are happy with.
Got it. That's good to hear. And then how much support are you willing to offer potential buyers? Are you going with the typical 30 days of email and Skype support, or did you have something in addition you'd like to add on to that?
Yeah, I mean, we have anything set in stone. I'm more than happy to help as much as needed up to a certain extent. I would probably say up to 3 months worth of transition. I would be more than happy to email back and forth as well as like monthly or bi-weekly Skype calls for an hour. I don't have really any sort of issues helping out as much as I can during the transition. We also have a stockpile of a good amount of topics that are kind of just in the backlog waiting to be created that would be handed over to the new buyer as well. So right away, you wouldn't have to go out and find new topics to create. We already kind of have a good amount of topics sitting that are ready for you if you chose to create that content.
That's really great to hear. And I'm sure any potential buyer that's listening to this call, they can see the value and, the support that you're willing to offer them, during the transition period. So it's really great. And then now, are you and your business partner open to something like an earnout where you'll receive a large portion of the sales price up front and then over the course of a couple months after that, receiving the rest of the deal's, earnout?
Yeah, I think right now we are open to anything. I would hate to say no to anything before actually seeing any of the details and whatnot. So yeah, absolutely open to anything. Like I said earlier, I'm very confident in the continuation of this business and it growing. So that is not a worry for us in terms of the earnout. We would be perfectly fine with that. But just in terms of the deal structure, it would have to make sense for us. But yeah, definitely open to all things like that.
Okay. Well, that's really great to hear. And then now just a few more sideline questions for you, Josh. Is there anyone who inspired you while you and your business partner were building this asset that our listeners might like as well?
I don't know so much while building this asset, but what like some of the biggest inspirations for me, like getting started and actually learning the ropes was like Spencer Haas from Niche Pursuits. He was a big inspiration for me for a while, especially getting started, like Pat Flynn, all those people that were kind of around 5 or 6 years ago that I was super interested in following and seeing how they were getting along. So that's the biggest inspiration for me to get started. I would say most recently, not so much inspiration, but kind of where I keep tabs on things, people like Traffic Think Tank. I don't know if you've heard of them, but it's like Nick Eubanks, Ian Howells and them. So that's like a group that I keep tabs on, as well as people like alpha investors and other people that are in the space of managing portfolios of businesses and things of that nature. So that's kind of the span all the way from when I was just getting started to where I am now with monitoring and keeping track of what's going on in the industry, as well as just overall inspiration for the business.
No, that's really great. And I'm sure, our listeners that are, looking for key influencers and people that they can turn to for advice, can always look them up. Now, what advice would you give to our listeners that you wish you knew when you started this business?
Good question. I would say the one thing I wish I knew was, because when we first started in this business, we pretty much just invested everything that the site made the previous month or the previous 2 months, right? So we just were our growth was limited to how quick the site grew the month before. So if we made $1,000 the month before, we only invested $1,000 the next month in content. So that kind of restricted our growth. It allowed for like nice and steady growth, but it also limited how quickly we could get to that and like point that it is now, right? So if I knew what I knew now, I would say invest a lot heavier in content sooner, just because we could get to we were at now maybe a year ago. And then now, if that was the case, we'd be even bit bigger than what we are at now. So that's probably my biggest advice, but that's kind of 2020 hindsight. You look at that. But other than that, I don't know if I have any other super specific advice, because as I mentioned earlier, it's kind of like this was our theory in terms of what would work for the site, right? So we kind of had an idea of what was going to work or what has a good chance of working. And it did play out that way. It just played out a little bit slower than what it could have if we knew, obviously, if all the cards were flipped up on the top of the table, we knew everything. So that's probably what I would say for that.
Okay. Yeah, that's great advice. And then now, was there any software or tools that you were using that really helped you start or even launch the business at the beginning?
So the biggest tool I would say is Ahrefs or Ahrefs. I don't know how everyone pronounces it, but basically that is our tool for finding topics, finding what kind of articles we should write, how we should write them, all that type of stuff. So that was sort of the engine or the software that we used to start the engine of the content creation. So that would be very important. Aside from that, probably like Airtable, which is where we have all of our content creation processes and systems in place, and everything is out of that system. So I would say Airtable and Ahrefs are the two biggest things for this business, for sure, in terms of software.
Okay. No, that's really great. I love Ahrefs as well. It's a really great tool, especially when it just comes to keyword research and, content research in general. Now, what was it that drove you and motivated you while you, have this business and grow it, over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I think that this business was the main driver of our entire portfolio for a while. So this was allowed us to, as this grew and got bigger and bigger, that allowed us to kind of expand into other businesses and other areas because this one was so successful. So it was kind of it opened up the doors in terms of what we could invest in and what we could start up or start doing new things and whatnot. So that was kind of the motivation for continuing to grow it. And as it got bigger, why we wanted to keep getting it bigger and whatnot. So that's probably the biggest motivation, I would say. I mean, outside of the fact of just wanting to grow it as big as it possibly can be. But outside of that, I would say it opened doors for other avenues that we could look into.
Yeah, no, that's really great to hear, that, during that time, you had a lot of the motivation to really scale this business, which, it's obvious that you have accomplished that. Now, why do you think that this business model is great for those who are getting started in the online business then?
Yeah, I think content businesses in general are great first time assets to purchase. I mean, there's definitely a general skill set that is needed to be able to manage it properly, but it's a lot easier to come in to a content business than it is like an e-commerce business or a SaaS business, because those require certain skill sets and certain level of knowledge to continue to actually operate it on a daily basis. With content businesses, you have a lot of leeway with actively managing it, because you could let a content business sit for a long time and it would more than likely continue or slowly decline. So I think that in itself is very attractive in terms of this business specifically. If I was looking at this from an outside perspective, I would be very intrigued by all the different affiliate programs that are used. I think that is one of the best ways to diversify away from one affiliate program kind of holding all the cards in a sense. Mm-hmm. We've seen over the past few years how Amazon has modified their commission rates and how that's impacted businesses at a large scale, especially people that are in certain categories, and went from an 8% commission down to a 3% commission rate. Like that can really hurt a business. So by having multiple affiliate sources and how each one of them doesn't have, I mean, we have one larger one that does around probably a little bit like 50, 60% of the revenue, but that can always be moved around to different places and whatnot. So we have good diversification among the affiliate programs, which is very attractive for me if I was looking at an outside business. And in the sense that we also have negotiated custom commission rates with our largest affiliate, that would also be very useful for a new person to come in, because you kind of have an advantage or a leg up in terms of the rest of the competitors, because you can get away with some extra stuff that someone else wouldn't have. Like maybe you can promote a certain product that wouldn't be very profitable for someone else, but it makes sense for you because you have a better commission rate. So that could make things a little bit easier on their end.
Yeah, no, definitely. And, even as you had mentioned before, having a well-diversified, landing page, or even the traffic going to multiple pages on your site, it's also, important to have a diversified revenue streams, leading through the different affiliate networks that you have set up as well. So that's really great to see. Now, putting yourself in the shoes of a buyer, Josh, why do you think that this business is worth buying?
Yeah. So a little bit of what I just said about the diversification amongst affiliate programs, I would think that's very attractive. I think the diversification among the landing pages and traffic is very attractive. I think outside of what I've already mentioned, I would say just the fact of we've created so much content, even over the past 6 months, that has not grown to its full potential and has been shown in the actual revenue of the site yet, because as it get to its full potential in terms of ranking and traffic and whatnot, I think that alone is very attractive, especially when you look at how much content we're actually creating. So that's attractive. And I think that there is a lot more future growth to this business if someone was coming with link building skill set that we didn't have. But if someone does have that, I think this could be a very, very attractive acquisition for someone that has those systems in place.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I'm sure any potential buyers that are listening to this call, they can see, a lot of the low-hanging fruit that's, awaiting for them to be able to take that opportunity and really scale this business to its full potential. Mm-hmm. That's great. So that pretty much wraps up the call, Josh. Is there anything else you'd like to share that I might have missed during this interview?
I think that pretty much covered everything. Yeah, I think that pretty much does everything. But for anyone's listening, I'm more than happy to answer any questions or anything that I forgot to mention that someone's wondering about. More than happy to be fully transparent and answer any question that people have. So if I did forget something, I'm more than happy to answer it at any point.
Okay. That's really great to hear, Josh. And again, a lot of insight to the, potential support that you're offering buyers. And I'm sure anyone that's listening to this and doing their own due diligence can also see the value in that as well. Mm-hmm. All right, cool. Josh, well, I look forward to seeing this listing getting sold for you here in the near future. And thanks again for coming on the call today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brandon.
Thank you. And then, all right, everyone. So thanks for listening. To learn more and to see if this listing has already been sold, head over to empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing number 47242. If you're watching this on YouTube, click the link in the description to go straight to the listing. And once you've unlocked this listing, you'll be given everything you need to know about the business. So until next time, enjoy your digital journey.